listening to Quality Time, a podcast designed to support Nebraskan providers through their journey with Step Up to Quality. I am your host, Colleen Schmidt. Get ready to listen as we prepare to elevate each other as we step up to quality. Hey everyone, I am so happy you're tuning in today. Today we have a real treat. Today I am speaking with Heather Schimdt. Heather is both a provider and a coach for Step Up to Quality. I think that is such a two cool roles to have. And that really is a unique position to be in. So welcome, Heather. We're so happy to have your voice and your perspective here. So before we get going, can you tell us a little bit about you? Like, where are you from? What do you do? I just mentioned that you wear multiple hats in the Step Up to Quality world. So if you can just give our listeners a little intro about who you are.
Well, first, thank you, Colleen, for having me participate in this. I feel like it's a really great honor. And I'm really glad that you are taking time to listen to providers and coaches and getting that out there for everybody to hear. So I am located in Broken Bow, Nebraska. And for those of you who don't know where that's at, it's in the middle of the state of Nebraska. It's a very small town, about 3,500 people, but we actually grow to a much larger city Monday through Friday because we have so many people coming in from all over the county. I've heard numbers of like saying that we grow to a town of 10,000 Monday through Friday, but to me that I'm like, really, that seems like a lot of people, but we do have quite a few large employers in our community. So, why that number seems like really large, but I don't think it would be unattainable. So I am a childcare provider. I am licensed, and I've been licensed for just over 16 years as a home one. I've actually been in the early childhood field for 30 years approximately. I've had many different roles. I've worked in preschools and large centers, small centers, until I finally got licensed myself. So, and then I get back, I think about it. And I mean, if you want to be technical, I probably could actually say I've been working in the field for 40 years because I started babysitting when I was 9 for other people. And so I think about that, like, that's just crazy to think about. I still have 9-year-olds that come to my program. And, but, it was many, many years ago, obviously, different time. So I've been, I think children have always been a part of my life, and young children.
Yeah.
Especially.
Heather, I think that so many of our listeners can relate to two things that you just said right there. First, how you've always known that you love working with children. Like a lot of us have that feeling inside where we've always just, when I was 18 and had to decide what are you going to do when you grow up, I always knew. Me too. I was babysitting at 9. I bet a lot of our listeners were also babysitting at a young age because sometimes it's innate that caregiver heart is just part of us. So we naturally are drawn into that. I love that you mentioned that. That's so true. And then there's so many people in the field whose mama was an at-home provider, and she was, it's just, I think it's such a testament to who we are in our field as a whole, as a workforce, really. I think it's just, I love when I hear that. So sorry to interrupt you. Keep going. I just liked that.
I was just thinking, actually, there was a period of my time when I was in college, and I forgot to say I was a nanny too, a nanny for triplets for a couple of years. But there was a time in my life when I was fighting it too, because you definitely have this mindset, or people put it into you like that is not a good career choice, because it is not, it's not a very lucrative career choice. And especially being a licensed provider, there's really not a way to work up. You're already the CEO of your own company. You can't really go any higher than that, but it doesn't offer a lot of, pay advantages or extras to help you grow financially.
Mhm.
But I think when I made the decision to do it, it just kind of felt really right.
Mhm.
And so that for me was like, all right, this, I'm going to do it. And it was scary to quit a job, where you're and decide to work for yourself. I mean, it's a huge leap and a leap. And at the time I was single too. So, I mean, I was opening a business and I was, dependent upon just my income. And so having a successful business, was something I really worked hard at and had that always in the back of my mind. Like, this is my livelihood. It's not just something I'm passionate about. I need to make a living too.
Yeah, I love that. And so it sounds like I know that so many can relate with what you just said. It sounds like you really have done a variety of things or been in a variety of roles throughout the years. Like you mentioned, you were a nanny. Isn't it fun sometimes to reflect back and be like, oh, yeah. Like I did that too. I was talking with a colleague the other day and I was like, oh yeah, I forgot I worked in college. I worked in the infant room. I knew nothing about what I was doing with those babies, but I was there for a little bit, and it's almost like it becomes part of you and your journey, but it's fun to reflect on that sometimes when you've been in the field for, for that long. Yeah.
It's kind of fun to reflect on the things that you kind of look back and go, oh, I wish I would have known more about that. But then I think about all the things that I learned how to do that shaped me as a professional now.
Totally.
That maybe if I had those experiences, like, oh, I think one of the biggest things I learned when I was nannying was like time management and how to multitask really well, because, you're by yourself a lot of times with, 3 infants,
Mhm.
and that's huge. And so just, learning how to balance all of that stuff and be mindful of what needs to be done. And, and I was, 20 years old.
Yep.
So that seems like an adult, but, you're not working with an adult brain when you're 20.
No, I don't think I had an adult brain at 20. No.
No.
I don't. So I hear you saying that you kind of got on this journey. You took a leap of faith, started your own business, became an in-home provider, and started, working for yourself. That is a scary jump. It really, truly, that is a leap of faith.
Yeah, there is no safety net there. So
into the water you go, and it sure seems like you're swimming. And you've been doing that you've been a licensed provider, at-home provider for 16 years. Is that correct? Yes. Is that what you said? Yeah. That means that you're doing something right. And it means that you're loving what you're doing. So I want to jump into that in a little bit. I'm kind of giving a little foreshadowing to our listeners that we're going to talk about that. But something else that's so interesting about Heather is not only is she part of Step Up to Quality as a provider, but also a coach. So tell us a little bit about how you what led you to that? Like that's another big jump. You're a brave girl.
Back in 2012, I started back to college. I started at Mid-Plains first, and I finished my Associates of Arts degree there, and I took things very slow. I did like 2 classes a semester, and because I was still working, my normal, 70 hours a week. job. And then when I graduated there in, what was it, 2016? Yeah, I think I decided, that I was not done learning. I really wanted to continue on. And in the meantime, UNK had developed this, I think it was in 2015, it developed this early childhood family advocacy degree. And, I was old enough that I didn't want to go into, teaching like in a public school. I was thinking in my mind, it was going to be 50 years old when I graduated college. I'm like, yeah, I'm not going to want to teach. And also the prospect of doing student teaching was very scary to me.
Yeah.
Because I'm like, how am I going to do this? And still, I would have to close my childcare for a semester, or even if they could stretch it out, I mean, financially, it wasn't feasible.
Mm-hmm.
And then they developed this degree, and there was no student teaching involved in it. But to me, when I read the courses through and talked with, actually my first conversation was with Paula Thompson, and she's amazing. She was a professor. She is a professor at UNK, and she was actually a friend of my Step Up to Quality coach, Connie Schweitzer. And so I kind of got in touch with her, and she visited with me about it. And I just thought, oh my gosh, this program sounds amazing, because to me, it was the best mixture of early childhood courses and family studies courses with lots of cultural diversity,
mm-hmm.
and things that I really wanted to learn more about, and a little bit of, counseling wrapped up in that, and just, the family aspect of it. And I thought, this is exactly what I'm doing. I am caring for children, but I am also caring for the entire family.
Yes, ma'am.
And that part, when I realized that and kind of embraced that aspect of it, I'm not just taking care of these children that are coming into my home. I'm, part of their parents' lives and their siblings' lives. And, and I really enjoyed that part of it. So that kind of was a very long explanation. But as I'm growing and learning, I start, taking on a little bit more of a advocacy role, leadership role. And I started helping Alex, well, at that time it was Roxanne Vipond at ESU 10, like schedule our trainings, and really trying to grow our childcare association and support group, and getting all these people in that had never come before. And it just kind of creating this community
mm-hmm.
for us, where we were all like, really trying to communicate and work together. And I just thought, I like this part too. Like, I like sharing things with fellow providers, and I like being able to talk to them. And I like being able to like share the knowledge that I'm learning in my classes with them, and just all these other little things. So then after I graduated, it was actually, I graduated July of 2020 during COVID. So I was very proud of myself for finishing up and not just completely quitting. But I, had kind of reached out to the Lynn and asking her about coaching positions, and said I was going to be graduating. And so after I graduated, I, filled out an application and, had some interviews, and I was just really excited about starting. And I really have, I had an amazing Step Up to Quality coach, and we knew each other before she was my actual Step Up to Quality coach. So we had a really good relationship. Again, I think I mentioned her earlier, Connie Schweitzer, and she, I think I really have to say she inspired me, because she always really took the time to, be a resource for me, and just really, a positive person in my life. And so that's kind of where we're at now, the long explanation.
I love it. I love so much of what you just shared about your story and your journey. You're an advocate, flat out, with a growth mindset. Like you are on a mission to not only just, serve the children in your own business or within your own care, but you're also, I so agree with what you said. You said, I'm caring for children, but I'm also taking care of their entire family. And that is so true. And I think everyone listening can relate to that. Like, it's not just about who's in your classroom or who's in your center or your home or your setting. It's so much more than that. We really are directly investing back into Nebraska in the roles that we're playing. We're a big old deal. And the fact that you're learning new things, you have this growth mindset, and then you're like, let me see if I can try and spread the love, share my knowledge. Like, yeah. And how you attribute a lot of that to having a positive, supportive coach of your own. So that's so cool. So there's so much unpacking that I'm so excited to talk to you, Heather. There's so much unpacking I want to talk to you about. So first, let's break it down a little bit. Since you wear these two big hats in our field, I want to get your perspective on how being part of Step Up to Quality supports or helps what you do directly in Broken Bow. So, and beyond, right? We know that it's not just Broken Bow. You mentioned that people are coming from all over, 10,000 people.
Yeah, I think that number might be a little bit, I don't know, inflated, but I mean, it wouldn't surprise me if we grow substantially. It's got to be, more than twice, because there's just...
So when you think about that number, let's say it's your population doubles, maybe even triples Monday through Friday. Your outreach is so much bigger than just Broken Bow. Yeah. It really is. You're reaching across the state. And I think that's so cool. So why, if I'm a provider listening and I'm just starting to learn about Step Up to Quality, I'm just starting to kind of think about it, like, I don't know, this sounds like a lot. I don't know what's involved. Can you talk to our providers listening and tell them what's in it for them? Like, what's the why? Why does Step Up to Quality support you as an in-home provider? How does this program support not only you, but your kiddos and the families you also serve? What's in it for providers?
So looking back, when I first did my orientation, I think it was 2014. I was trying to look that up to see, and I'm like, gosh, I don't know if I remember exactly, but so, it was still, fairly new.
Yeah.
And I'll be honest, my first thought, I was always looking, because we had mentioned, I was the CEO of my own company. And so I was the only income coming in. And so I was always looking for opportunities to add to my income of things I could do. And yes, definitely adding education to it and just learning, but also like, I needed money to continue on my business. So, there was financial, stipends. I don't know if you want to call them rewards. I don't like to use that term, but, as you move up the Step Up to Quality stairway, stuff. It sounded weird to say that again, but as you're moving up, they want to recognize that you've put money in to making improvements and raising your quality and stuff. So like, here's to say, to kind of support you. Mm-hmm. So that was what it, initially was like, okay, this is a way to add to my income. Yep. And, then even, it took me a while to even, I was still doing trainings and things to meet that step 2 level. And then, so that took a little bit of time. And then I was finishing up my associate's degree. So I kind of put things on hold a little bit before I decided to do the rating. And when I got done with school, that in 2016, then I focused more on getting my, portfolio ready for Step Up to Quality and working on the things. And then I realized as I was working on all this stuff, like, I'm already doing this stuff that's in here. It's just like, I didn't realize I was doing it. I didn't, this was just part of, running a business. And then just looking at other things that I wanted to improve on, just from, health and safety practices, adding materials to my program. And I had been involved in other grant programs and other initiatives. I did the Infant Toddler Quality Initiative for several years. And so, all that stuff, I'd had some of the environmental rating scale observations done a few times. So, I had in the back of my mind, I knew kind of the steps that needed to be taken and what they were looking for as far as quality. But I think the way it supports me, and I like to think this would go for everybody, but it keeps me fresh, always learning and always growing, because, I think back to the kids I had 16 years ago. This isn't the same world.
Nope.
I'm in now. And so trying to stay fresh, trying to learn more and different things and challenge myself. I have to keep challenging myself, because if I don't do that, then I feel it's a disservice to my kids and the families. And so I think this is just a tool almost to help me stay on track and meet goals I'm trying to think of the word. I've lost my words, but in a quantified way.
Yeah.
Like that you can, check this off, but just always keep learning. Even the goal of doing 24 hours of training is something that is good, because, it's not hard to do. And there's so much more I get out of it. And I've found that if I don't keep up on that, I get stuck in a rut and I'll get burned out. Yeah. So how it was explained to me was, if you are stressed out, you need to remove something from your life. If you're burned out, you need to add something.
Oh.
So I'm like, sometimes I think I add a little too much, but I always try and keep that in mind, that if I'm feeling burned out, it's because maybe I need to take a training, or if I maybe even just read some articles or do some self-directed learning.
I love that perspective on burnout, Heather. I like to talk about burnout a lot. We won't get into it too much on this podcast, but I like that perspective on it. Like, wow, I maybe am getting a little stale, and that's why maybe I'm feeling frustrated or burnt out, and maybe I just need a fresh point of view. You mentioned that joining Step Up to Quality really, you liked it because, one, the financial incentive is kind of what drew you in. I think that is what, let's be real, that's that's what's going to draw in many providers. Of course, yes, that is obviously going to be a huge part of maybe your why. And that's okay to say. I think that's totally reasonable to
Yeah,
say.
because if you think about it, other professions, they get paid their hourly wage to go to trainings
Yep.
and things like that. And, we don't. We do it on our own time. We do
I
it
know.
a lot of times after we're done working our 60, 70-hour week. We are, have to do all that extra. Teachers get to go,
Yeah.
they don't have to have a classroom all day of a classroom and then go to training at night.
Yeah.
But and I don't want to throw teachers under the bus.
We won't do that.
It's just the way it is. And so it's nice to kind of have that check off of goals, or sometimes you don't know what quality is. I mean, because it's such a broad, it can look different to a lot of people, but here's some things that, here's a list of things that are universally what we think of as quality.
Yeah.
And you can look at them the way you want to. They can be interpreted some different ways to fit your program. Looking at why should a provider join, I think one of the things that people might be hesitant of is that I just you have to do all this stuff. Well, you have control over what you do. Nobody is telling you that you have to do it. Nobody is telling you that you have to do it this exact way. And I think we kind of get caught up in that of I don't want anybody telling me how to run my business. But it's definitely not that way. You're still in control. You're still driving your bus. You're still the one that's saying yes or no. There's nobody that's taking that away from you. So then if you look at it in that perspective, it's why not?
Right.
Why not participate and step up to quality? It doesn't cost you anything to participate. It doesn't, people think it might take up more of your time, but there might be some initial time, but if you go in and look at it from a different perspective, it's not really going to take as much time because you can choose what you want to do.
Right. And you mentioned, Heather, that when you signed up, you were like, oh, a lot of this I am already doing as a business owner, and as a provider who's been in the field for a while. I think that's another thing that maybe we need to celebrate a little bit more about Step Up to Quality. They really do highlight what you're already doing really well. You're already doing it. And now here's a few ideas, if you choose, that you could implement and add to become even better. That growth mindset that is very obvious that you have, that if you're willing to try and, implement new strategies or health and safety practices, or maybe find new engaging materials for the kiddos in your care, those are all ideas that Step Up to Quality can support you with. And I think that's a big thing. I love what you just said about you're still driving the bus. You're in charge. You're the one. Yeah, I love that. Oh, I think that's such a good message for what you just said to our providers. So let's talk a little bit about coaching. So why is coaching important? Why do we need coaching? You mentioned that you were in the field for 16 years. Your stuff, what you're doing. You do.
Yeah, but I also don't ever want to get to that place where I feel like I know everything too, because I don't. And I need to have that realistic view of myself and say, okay, you don't know everything, Heather. So it's okay to learn.
I love that.
I think coaching for me and why how I look at it is I think about how many years I spent licensed and working, or even working in the field. I won't I won't mention when I worked for this large center, it was definitely a a lesson on what not to do as far as quality.
Mm-hmm.
And I just remember thinking, oh my gosh, this is not good. But you stay because you care about the families and you care about the kids, and you develop this really great relationship with them, and you do feel like, oh my gosh, if I leave, I'm just leaving them. And it's but we really had very little support,
Yeah.
professionally working for this center. And so when you're a licensed provider working out of your home, I am a home too. I can have an employee, but there was several years I wasn't licensed as a home too, and there's several years that I did, but I didn't have an employee.
Mm-hmm.
It's very lonely.
Yeah.
And when you are the only one working, and a lot of times all you see is your failures and what you should be doing that you're not doing correctly. And it can be really, you get really down on yourself and very critical of yourself. And so having a coach is a partner that's coming in, that's working with you. It's definitely a partnership. When I talk to my programs that I'm coaching, it's like, I want them to give as much as I'm giving.
Mm-hmm.
But I also really, like I said before, I had an incredible coach. And so I learned a lot from her. And then even just being involved in the coaching, our monthly meeting, or every 6 weeks, I think we meet, just in listening to those coaches talk about their programs and how supportive they are of them and how excited they are for them. And so I want providers to know that your coaches believe in you, and they have nothing but positive things to say. And it's so nice to work with a group of individuals who like really value what you do, because we know that early childhood education has not been in the forefront until really the last few years.
Mm-hmm.
And so you're looking at that and you feel like you're always fighting this uphill battle.
Mm-hmm.
Getting other people to see you as as a professional, for one, and you work so hard advocating for yourself. Well, now you've got this coach that comes in and says, yes, you are doing a great job, and they're helping you advocate for yourself, and they're helping you grow professionally. So it is not somebody coming in telling you what you need to do and what you're doing wrong. They're looking for everything that you're doing right, because I definitely know this. Like, there's enough negativity going on in my own head.
Yeah.
That I don't need to, I don't want to hear that from anybody else. And I definitely don't want to put that out for my providers. But I also think a coach can challenge you to think outside of your little box. And so that's really good to have, is somebody saying, okay, well, have you thought about this? Or what about this? Or even to go as far as like, okay, I would really like you to try this, because I think, because, you are smart and capable, and I know you can do it, and I know it's uncomfortable, but would you give it a shot? Just because even and then you go and you do them and you're like, oh my gosh, I feel so amazing because I did something I didn't think I was going to be able to do. So that's one aspect of it. The other aspect of it is, honestly, when you achieve that step 2 and you get your packet, for when you want to be rated steps 3 through 5, that packet is so overwhelming. And you are looking at it and you're like, I don't even understand what any of this says. I don't know what this means. I don't know what to do. Where do I start? And so a coach is really somebody who can break down, can come in and go, whoa. We're gonna focus on this little piece, or hey, why don't we try this first, or let's look at your strengths first, and then we'll go back and look at things that we need to work on. But I honestly, if you, to anybody working on Step Up to Quality, like they're at a stage 3, like, get a coach because it's tough out there. And even, your coach is like, I'm very much like, again, you're driving your own bus. So I'm not there going, okay, let's do that. We have to do this. We have to do this. We have to do this. But I want to help people set goals too, because I don't want them to become stagnant and frustrated with the process. So I don't know. Is that helpful?
Yes, that's exactly what I was hoping you would tell us, because I know all of that to be true. I love how you kept it real about how, especially being an in-home provider, can be a lonely, isolating sometimes job. Even though you're surrounded by beautiful babes that you obviously love, it's lonely. You might not have adult interaction all day. And that inner voice that we sometimes can get really loud in our own heads of all the things we're not doing right, all the things that are hard, all the things that, I wish I knew how to do this better. Like that can become really strong, especially if you're having those feelings of loneliness or failure or being really critical of yourself. And I love how you mentioned that having a Step Up to Quality coach is there to support you. Like they're excited to be with you. They are your biggest cheerleader on the block.
Exactly what I was going to say. Like, I want to be a cheerleader. It's, I was never a cheerleader in high school, but I feel like I could be a good one. I'm not going to do a lot of loud screaming. I'm not that kind of cheerleader, but I'm definitely like, you're doing such a great job. I'm so proud of you.
Yeah. And what you mentioned about the support with some of the bureaucracy stuff, like not that we can't do it on our own, but having someone alongside us who can kind of go through some of the nitty gritty of the paperwork or the binder, like you mentioned, like that's huge. Like that's what the coach is there to do. They believe in you. They're excited for you. They're encouraging, like Heather said, she encourages her partners to be advocates for themselves. Like that's truly how we're going to make some big gains in this field. That makes me really excited.
That is so true. And that is, again, one of those things that has taken me years and years and years. And it's constantly like, I have to start advocating for myself and my profession.
Yep.
And
Heather, we need a whole nother podcast.
I know we do. But I mean, well, that's a soapbox and I won't get on it.
It's mine too, but I'm serious. I'm gonna advocate for another podcast on advocacy and see if I can get you back, because I feel you like that. It's hard. Like it's hard to advocate for yourself.
It is. And you almost like, okay, so I'm going to give another shout out to a couple of people, because I think this is something to, so when I started back to college when I started at UNK and was taking, my first class there was families and social policy. Mm-hmm. And I was like, this sounds political. I don't want to I'm not political at all. That class is probably my favorite class that I took the whole time I was at UNK. And oh my gosh, I mean, it just opened up a whole new world for me. And I thought, oh my gosh, I am political. I am like, it was, I do have all these ideas and this point of view and this strong sense of self, and I want to change the way people view families I want to change the way people view early childhood education. That's, what I want to do. And so my professor for that class was Dr. Sharon Obasi, and she has been a cheerleader for me as well. And so like, just, I can't, just such a role model, and just a wonderful person. And then my advisor, Dr. Tony Hill, through the head of the department, the family advocacy part of it, her too, with just how they supported me as a childcare provider, and how they look at, they didn't look at me as like, well, you're just a childcare provider. They're like, oh my gosh, you're doing all this amazing work already out in the world. And we want to help you work harder, do better, to really shape you and get you to look at yourself as an advocate, and really, make your voice louder and give you the words or the drive, all the other stuff that goes into that. Yeah. But, I want to say that they were such a positive resource for me. And just I always have them in the back of my mind when I'm, speaking for myself and my profession, because I think, they would be like, go Heather, you're amazing.
Yeah, Heather, aren't we lucky? That's such a good shout out for UNK too. I love that. And for that program for early childhood family advocacy degree.
I know, I will talk that program up. I mean, anybody can contact me, and I will tell them it was the most amazing program. And I learned so much.
I love that. And the fact that your journey of advocacy, that seems like it started at UNK, maybe beyond, now is filtering into what you're doing with Step Up to Quality. And I think that's where in Nebraska, we really are lucky that we have programs that are quality, that are promoting advocacy, that are promoting and supporting providers and educators. And I think that is just such a testament to what we're trying to do here. It gets me really excited. And I love talking to you about all of this, Heather. I think we could go on and on and on. We really could. We could just sit here all night and keep going.
Yeah, and then everybody would be like, okay, we've heard enough. Okay.
But we'd have fun. But we like to end the Stepping Up podcast with the same question for every guest. So Heather, here's your question. What is your why? Why do you do what you do?
Oh, there's a lot of reasons. Obviously, I love the whole, watching children grow and develop. And that is the fun part of my job. Mm-hmm. I like that my job is not the same every day. There's always different challenges. Something I've embraced, because I will say this at the beginning, I always thought it was just taking care of kids, but the fact that I've really allowed myself to embrace this whole thing of really developing relationships with families and stuff. And I really want them to have the feeling that they're being supported too, because, I know those moms and dads out there who sometimes are like, I am a terrible parent. I let my cat have a popsicle for supper. So, like just knowing that there's somebody out there going, you're doing a great job. Your kids are great. And having like somebody that can ask questions and say, is this normal? Is this typical? Is this what my child should be doing? Or having like, I'm really concerned about my child. Do you think this is something I should be concerned about? And being able to say, I think, that yes, you should be concerned about that. I think you're exactly on the right track, or just having that. And then obviously I like that I've discovered that I'm a lifelong self-directed learner. So I like the fact that I can keep doing that in my job, and it benefits my job, but that I get to kind of pick what I want to learn about. Like if I decide I want to, gosh, of course I can't think of any subjects, but I wanted to learn more about like science development with children. I could pick up something, I could do a bunch of research on it. I could, learn everything. And the kids help me learn stuff every day. We're always learning new things. And
yes.
so I just love to learn, and the kids help me learn. So
I love it. I love that you mentioned the relationships with the families and being a cheerleader for them too. Heather, you're so cool. You really are. You are a powerhouse here in Nebraska. We're lucky to have you. Broken Bow is super lucky to have you as a provider and Step Up to Quality as a coach. So I just thank you so much for joining this podcast and sharing your perspective and sharing your voice. Keep sharing your voice, Heather. We need your voice for sure. And thank you to everyone for spending quality time with us. Please join us again as we chat about future topics to support our Nebraskan providers on their journeys with Step Up to Quality. Until next time, bye-bye.